I would like to welcome all of you to this third week of the Open Fora, which has the topic Professional Learning, University Lifelong Learning as Enabler of Talent Enhancement. And before we will be connected to the autumn seminar, because as you might know, this is a hybrid session today. So we will be connected to the face-to-face event of the UCon's autumn seminar. And before of that, I would like to give you just a brief overview about the content of the session today. So my name is Diana Trevino. I'm working as a project officer at UCon. And today we will start the session at 3:15, and then we also will be connected to the face-to-face event. Then the speakers will start. And then afterwards, we will have a discussion group or a dialogue in between three different perspectives, the university perspective, the market perspective, and the student perspective. And we will have three speakers which want to discuss the questions how to be prepared to the market needs in advance. So we want to have the different views combined, and this dialogue will be moderated by Eva Senden from the Distance University of Hagen. And after this dialogue, there will be a time for discussion. The speakers of the dialogue will be Laurent Mismac. He's Director of Digital Services of Siemens. He will be the representative of the market. Then we will have as a speaker Dr. Gary Husband from the University of Sunderland. He will be the representative of the university perspective. And then the student perspective will be represented by Kirstin Sonne. And she is a recent graduate, and she will also provide some information from her perspective. I hope this will be a very interesting session.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the welcome. And I'm very happy to join us in this session. And as I come from industry, I would like to explain the evolution of the industry. And we have had 4 industrial revolutions. The industrial 1.0 was the mechanical and the introduce of the steam and the water power. You remember maybe the textile machine in the past. And the second industry 2.0 in the assembly line with the cost for the mass production with the electrical power. You remember maybe the Ford T, okay, with terrorism, okay, as you know. And the industry 3.0, okay, we have the automation processes, the computer system, and robotics. And now we are in the industry 4.0, the so-called the smart factory. And we introduce now the autonomous system, like the vehicle, the IoT, the Internet of Things, okay, the things connected to the Internet. And we have the cloud, the edge computing, the blockchain, the intelligence artificial. We have the low code, and so on. A lot of technologies that we don't have 10 years ago. Okay, we have a very big expansion for the different technology. And now I would like to explain the definition, the interest of the industrial 4.0 jobs. What's modernization? Okay, thanks to the automation, digitalization, and the big data, the industry is modernizing. Okay, the factory is becoming more intelligent. It's adapted to the production needs by anticipating them. It's very important. And the new revolution industrial is driven by the new type of jobs, okay, that are opening the doors to the industry and services. Indeed, the digital transformation has forced the job, okay, to evolve during the recent years. Of course, we don't waiting for, okay, the digitalization to adapt our job. the skills are changed. The new expertise today is emerging. And men and women are the heart of the Industry 4.0 to shape the future. So Industry 4.0, okay, is becoming more advantages, like the order processing system and the production line level, the energy efficiency. For that, with this new technology, we have the possibility to have a better organization of the production, more efficient use to the resources, and the reduction of waste. It's very important for the footprint carbon with the COP27, for example. Okay, and today we live in a rapidly digitalizing world. That's a fact. Okay, the use of connected technological device is becoming increasingly easy, even for the young people, of course. And for me, the evolution of the Industry 4.0, okay. Try the word, okay. We are moving toward, okay, the emergence for the new type of job, and in order to fulfill, okay, this mission, for me, the education must to be organized around 4 fundamental learning areas, okay, which throughout the life we will be the pillar of the knowledge, okay, for each individual. And we have the learning to know. It's very important, okay, for industry. Learning to know because you get the instrument for the understanding. The learning to do, okay, to be able to act once, okay, environment. The learning to live together, okay, because we need to participate, to collaborate with others, okay, in the human, okay, the human activities. And the last one for me is learning to be. Okay, it regains the self-confidence, okay, in order to, of course, this essential pathway, okay, is linked for the previous three, okay. And I have a very good example for the sales representative in the industry. In the past, the sales representative sells the product. Now, the customer with the digitalization doesn't want the product. He wants to have a systemic approach, a solution approach. He wants that we question the customer at the usage case. Okay, and for example, how to reduce the reduction of the consumption for the plant, how to master the predictive maintenance in order to have more availability of the machine, because when the machine is stopped, automatically you lose, okay, money. And for that, we need to rethink, okay, the sales reps representative. Today, we don't have at the sales representative to sell a product, but to sell the value proposition. And to go to the value proposition, we need to have a better understanding of the usage of the customer. For that, it's very simple. First of all, we ask at the customer the job to be done. What is your job to be done? What kind of solution today you have? Why? Because if you propose the same solution, okay, like you lose as a deal. And very important to realize the list of the pain point, because each morning, okay, the customer wake up and he has in the head, okay, the list of the pain point. And of course, we need to identify the satisfaction of the customer. With these 4 elements, we are able to create a value proposition, because the goal is to reduce, okay, the pain point, but don't destroy the satisfaction and to ask a value proposition. And for that, we use in the industry now the co-creation. Okay, you have the co-creation value with the customer with a different questionnaire in order to identify the pain point, the satisfaction, the job to be done, and the solution, existing solution. Okay, and for the product manager, we have another type for product project and product manager. We have another type of method to work, and now these people understand that okay, you work on the project. You are maybe the leader of the project, but sometimes for another type of project, you will be the individual contributor and not the leader. You need to accept okay this situation because you put the leader regarding what kind of subject the customer has okay, and we need to stick the correct competencies in order to make sure that we are able to solve okay, the problem of the customer. This is present that now we train our team okay, to become a leader and sometimes to become an individual contributor, a member of the team. That's all. Okay. We need to change the paradigm okay, for that because the school education doesn't bring this key in order to sell today for the school for the school. We learn to sell a product and not to sell the value proposition. And it's more complex, okay, to shift, okay, to the selling a product to the value proposition. Okay. It's the first part that I would like to develop.
Thank you very much for this first part. And I would immediately go on and see what a colleague from the university takes. So take your seat. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Capacities.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for having me. I live in Scotland, I work in England, but I'm from Wales. So
thank you.
Hopefully my accent isn't going to cause too many problems. I'll do my best, what we call a BBC voice in the UK. It's lovely to be welcomed and to be here with very much, feel very much a part of Europe. So thank you for the invite. Thank you, Laurent, for your thoughts there. We have had an opportunity to have some discussion, so this hasn't come as a complete surprise. So my response isn't just quite off the cuff as it might seem. So yeah, interesting. The things I think I want to highlight are through my career, I've been fortunate enough to work in situations where I've been able to develop multiple partnerships with organizations such as those that Laurent works in, like Siemens, or I've worked with people like Toyota and Nissan and all sorts of things in the past. And those partnerships have always really focused very much on the development of the types of expertise and career focused individuals that might want to go and work in those organizations with those industries. But the critical aspect of it was that made them successful was there was a two-way process. So the colleagues from within those industries came in to the education organization and provided some of the expertise in order to help the development. So very much a symbiotic approach. Now, some universities are better at doing that. Some colleges of further education are better at doing that, and indeed some industry partners are better at doing that as well. So I think something that we could really usefully talk about is how we are able to manage those two-way processes, how we can fully integrate them so that the needs of the organization, the industry and organization is met, and their customers, but also the needs of the university or college are met too. And I think there's multiple ways that we can do that. I'll talk about 2 or 3 different things. One's going to be how we structure learning. And another one might be how we look at the platforms upon which that learning can be based. So, I mean, I'll tackle the structure of learning first. I'm the first to admit that within the university system there is a level, well, certainly in the UK, a level of rigidity in how things are done, and they're done that way because they've always been done that way. And that's certainly a challenge I've had to find creative ways around in the past. So if you take the degree structure, for example, it might be that it has the required content that matches, perhaps the research regime of the organisation. It might effectively work with one or two partners. It's not that doesn't happen. But we've still got this sort of fairly fixed approach, largely and dominantly, and I can talk about the UK here. I know there are differences across Europe and the world. Of the 3-year undergraduate degree, or in Scotland, it's often a 4-year because there is a multi-focused year to start, or foundation year to start in Scotland. But the structure is the same, and it's very difficult to fit in the industrial input, the partnership work placements, and those sorts of things within that rigid structure. And it's quite difficult to manage that partnership both ways. So I think if we were to be quite radical, we might look at saying, well, how else might we shape the degree level or postgraduate level of qualifications in order to bring in a bit of space, a bit of time in. And there are obviously good examples of where we have industrial placements, but also I'm going to talk about things that were part of the theme of today and tomorrow actually, is looking at things like micro-credentials. Short, sharp pieces of learning that's very specifically focused, and that might be on, sort of dual professionalism, or it might be on a very particular item of leadership, or whatever it might be. But those sorts of things could be integrated into standardized degree programs. They could come later on as postgraduate or undergraduate modules, or even just 10 credits specifically, but developed in partnership. There are other opportunities, I think, and one of the major developments that's really taken hold more recently is degree level apprenticeships. So where we've had, I did a very traditional apprenticeship in engineering, and then I did the latest study. But there wasn't really an opportunity for me to be able to do degree level engineering apprenticeship work. That's changing, very much changing. I mean, my own brother works in the nuclear fusion development industry in Oxford, and the vast majority of the practical engineering teaching and learning that goes on is now being taken in through degree level apprenticeships who are then attached to the current engineers. I have to take a drink.
Yeah.
I think another really important aspect of this is the digital environment of learning. And I mean, obviously, we've all engaged with what we've called the virtual learning environments for 20 years. That's not a new thing. However, I think what is developing and is becoming quite exciting, and Laurent alluded to this, is the sort of cloud-based, sort of very interactive, live digital environments that you're working in. I think those are becoming more mirrored within the virtual learning environments that we're able to create for students within our learning environments in universities. And I think there's an opportunity here for us to really look at how we develop these virtual learning environments and that digital offering, again, in partnership with individuals from industry. So, if I was running a particular course, I might have in there the opportunity for discussion-based interaction and invite individuals from industry into those spaces. It could be that there are real-time problems that's being dealt with within industry that's being shared with students in that learning environment, as well as the learning content that we're all very familiar with. So I think the key things really here are looking at what the student experience looks like in terms of what they need to learn and what the university can offer, how that's then integrated with the needs of industry, how we then partner that up with changing the shape of the sorts of offers that we're able to give in terms of courses and qualifications, and then also how we support that within a digital environment. I think they're my main things that we could usefully talk about. Is that okay? Is that good enough? Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Well, I think now even more interesting. What does the student say?
No pressure.
So Kirsten, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you to Laurent and Gary for your interventions, very interesting interventions. I am here representing the students. I think you can all, you would all agree that that's a bit basically an impossible task given the range of students that attend higher education today, the diversity within the student body of every higher education institution, and that when we think of non-traditional learners, that term in itself, you could say, has become obsolete in a way, and I would argue that instead of focusing on what makes them non-traditional, we should think more about what barriers universities still pose for those kinds of learners. So I think we should always keep that in mind when we're thinking about students and how they interact both with the institutions as well as with the industry. But I think even despite that range within every student body, there are some things that students have in common, and that's first of all an understanding or a general, perhaps you could say, an apprehension of the labour market as changing very rapidly, and also the realization, I think, for anyone, especially who has gone through university, who has studied since the financial crash, basically, of 2008, the idea that a university degree doesn't guarantee a job, and that our generation, I feel like I've been told this so many times, we're the first generation who shouldn't expect to be as well off as our parents, and that higher education is no longer that guarantee for economic prosperity or even stability. And so when it comes to higher education, I think one of the main expectations that students bring to universities is that they won't just provide that degree, but will also provide additional skills and connections, perhaps networking, that will provide students with the tools they need to secure not only employment, because I think we really need to make a distinction between employment, which is precarious or short-term, and building a long-term career and finding that career. So I think universities and the industry need to work together to make sure that they can provide the foundation for students to go into the world and have a clear sense of the kind of career they can pursue, and not just finding a job that is short-term or precarious. Having said that, I would also say from my own experience that any kind of engagement that universities offer to students that brings them closer to the industry, that connects them to employers, tends to be one of the aspects of their whole university experience that students appreciate the most, that they value the most, and that students expect more increasingly to have tutors who are also connected, well connected to their respective industries, and that also ties in with the kind of provision that universities can offer to students, and which I think increasingly students appreciate, having the kinds of employability services that career services traditionally offer, but having them expanded to other parts of the institution as well. So what I'm trying to say is that students appreciate having, in terms of the kinds of employability services, I think it's always more helpful for students to have a holistic approach to providing employability services. So not having a career centers that's isolated from the rest of the university, but rather having a approach whereby, employability, be that through internships or placements, is actually integrated into the rest of the learning. It isn't just an add-on to the curriculum, but interwoven in a way. And I think students increasingly have that expectation to find that in universities. To finally touch on the digital aspect that has been mentioned, of course, that has completely changed the student experience just within the last few years. And I think it's led to a proliferation, or, well, I think there was already a tendency for alternative forms of education, especially through digital tools, to be offered to students. But I think especially since the pandemic, there's been such a proliferation of alternatives to traditional higher education, often offered at a lower cost, often offered in a more flexible way that is more adaptive to students' needs. And so I think students are generally starting to question the value of traditional higher education, and look towards alternatives that may be more suited, as I said, to their diverse backgrounds and requirements as well. So I think I'll stop there for now, but I look forward to discussing all of these issues further with all of you and my panelists. Thank you.
I join you just shortly and quickly because I think for the first side, I would give you the floor to ask the question to yourselves that you were, that came to your mind from the different statements that you took. So to have, in the first way, a short discussion between the three of you, and be patient. Then we open discussion for the colleagues here and the colleagues who join us online. But first, I give the floor to the three of you for the question you always wanted to ask. Ask them now. Wants to start? Gary.
Okay.
I see that.
That's fine. I'm happy to start. I think this might usefully open up the conversation a little bit, actually. So I'm going to ask you the question I pre-warned you about. So if you had a magic wand, which we'd all like, what major change to university structures would you put in place overnight to facilitate lifelong learning or meet some of the needs that you identified? I think that'll open it up nicely.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. My magic wand. Well, where to start? I think in terms of, because you're asking about structures in particular, I would say something that could be changed across all the diverse range of programs that higher education institutions offer nowadays. I would say, and this ties in, I think, to your response in a way to what Laurent was talking about, which I found really interesting about hierarchies changing within companies and employees being expected to take on different roles and actually not just break down hierarchies, but actually move through them and be able to move back and forth from the position of a supervisor, say, to a team member, as you mentioned. And I think in that regard, higher education institutions are very much not prepared yet to train their students to prepare students for that kind of working, for that kind of position shifting in a way that they will then encounter in their work. Higher education institutions are generally very hierarchical, as you all know. And I think those kinds of structural changes to the hierarchy are very difficult to implement. So I would probably use my magic wand to try and speed that up. I think it is just a matter of time, but and I think there may be partly due to digitalization as well. Those clear boundaries between tutors and students are starting to break down, just because digitalization offers so many opportunities for the co-creation of knowledge. But I think in most institutions, they're very much still in place. And I think that's one of the major barriers, or one of the major mismatches that still exists between the expectations of companies and the skills that students leave or graduate with. So yeah, addressing the hierarchies within institutions is definitely one of the things, at least, that I would use my magic wand for. There may be other things as well. But I don't know if that question was also directed to Laurent, maybe, or...
Could you go to?
Not for the topic, because I have another topic for maybe regarding the pyramid of age. Okay, 10 years ago at Siemens, okay, we have realized that 30% of people of Siemens will leave Siemens in 2025. It was a big problem, okay, for us. But at the same time, the digitalization is arrived. It's really a good opportunity, because we have no issue today, because we need the new profile. And the younger, okay, that the new students, okay, is more ability to use the digitalization. And we have a new job, like the cybersecurity, like the blockchain, like the IoT, okay, edge computing, and so on. And we need the new type of profile. And the result, we don't have any problem now, okay, to move the people will retire in 2025, because we need a new type of profile. And we know that when we have people as a 16, I'm not sure that is able to learn a new technology, like the blockchain, like the cybersecurity. Okay? We have a big gap in order to learn this type of technology. And it is reason that for me, the digitalization is not a problem, it's not an issue. Okay? Because due to, okay, the modification of the profile, okay, we have the solution. It's a very important for us. The second point for me is the appetite, because in order to make sure that the students is able to adapt like the big company like Siemens. Siemens is the processes is incredible. Okay, we need 2 years to understand. Okay, where is the canteen, and is this reason that through the apprentice, okay, we have a lot of chance, okay, to integrate these students and to transfer the know-how, okay, with our processes, and to make sure that we select the correct people, because we have 2 years or 3 years, it depends the school, okay, to analyze, to observe, okay, these students, and make sure that, okay, we are able to hire these guys, okay, or women, because the profile fit, okay, for the future. It's very important point for us to push the appetite solution. And today at Siemens France, we have 200 appetites, and the last year we have recruited 50. Okay, and 50, because we have the job for that. Okay. Sometimes the job is not open, and we're waiting for the people will retire. And it is present that for me it's a new opportunity. The last point for my entity, when we have students, okay, come with me, okay, we ask the curriculum vitae, but I don't ask the motivation letter. For me, the motivation letter, it has been, because if you want to come at Siemens, okay, I hope he has a motivation, okay, but I need a letter when he describes the project. Maybe he has a project, okay? and you need to describe, okay, what kind of project you have when you join Siemens. Okay, you know the job profile, and what can you support, what kind of knowledge, okay, you bring on my entity in order to work together. And you need to change, okay, the paradigms like the motivation letter, because everybody is motivated to work, okay, but to make sure that the students has a journey, okay, for the future. And so the last point, when I use the recruitment, I don't want to define the career of the students. I have no career. It depends your behavior. It depends day by day. Okay, your behavior, how you integrate. Okay, our company. What kind of add value? Okay, you have when you realize your daily job and so on. And it's really important to change, okay, the mentality and to focus our students with an other type, okay, of motivation, of pathway, okay, for the future.
When you mentioned this project in the head instead of motivation, like, you mean this like entrepreneurship skills, entrepreneurship ideas?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. For me, each people of my team is entrepreneur. Is owner for my entity, okay? Because we have the rule, of course, we have the process. We need to sign 5 times, okay, in order for the order and so on. Okay, it's a process. Okay, it's a normal way because we need the barrier, we need the rule for that. But I push the innovation, the co-creation. I push. For me, I need, okay, for each member of my team, okay, create something day by day. And how to you prepare the students for that?
I can see why I ended up sitting in the middle here. Okay, thank you very much. This is the gin, right? Yeah. So there's a number of points there, and I'll try and address them as best I can. I think the things that were going through my head listening to you both talking were about movement of experience. And you're talking about the flattening of hierarchies. And I think for me, whilst I agree, a practical way of doing that would be to go back to what I was talking about with the movement of experience between people in industry, people in universities doing research and teaching expertise, working with student bodies and student groups in and out of different spaces. And I think ways to do that would be to pick up on what you were saying about problem-based and project-based learning. I mean, I don't want to talk universities down, because there is an awful lot of really innovative, creative teaching and learning that goes on, and much of what I could suggest is happening somewhere. I think it's about trying to broaden that so it's happening more frequently in more different ways. An example came into my head, and there's a friend of mine who is a consultant in a hospital, and he got in touch with me and said, I've taken on some university work to go and do some teaching practice. Have you got any hints and tips? I've never done it before. So I went for a drink and we talked through, and I said, what are you doing? What are you teaching them? And actually, he's not teaching them medicine at all. He's teaching them how to be a clinician. And it's about how to care with care, how to support individuals who are in crisis. It's about managing the clinical environment, managing the clinical team. It's not medicine at all. And the university is bringing in expertise from hospitals and from settings in order to do that. And I said, oh, that's innovative. He said, oh, no, they've always done it. It's always been that way. And I think there's a really nice lesson to be learned there about, if we are developing, well, let's use engineering as an example, engineering or automation courses, why don't we work with Laurent to integrate exactly what it is you're doing and have this movement between the university, the students and the expertise in and out of those spaces much more freely, whether that's physically or digitally. I think there's opportunities there for both. I think that's largely the response I'm going to give to both of the challenges that were presented there. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I guess in that case, my question would be, to what extent do we actually still need universities as the middle, literally in this case,
Yeah.
middle middleman in between the students and industry? Wouldn't it make more sense to have the kind of just have an apprenticeship then, basically, where the students are completely immersed in the enterprise, in the company from day one? So I guess my question to both Laurent and to you, Gary, would be like, what is the added value that universities in this kind of environment can still bring, given that, I mean, presumably enterprises have all the expertise that they need within their enterprise. Yeah. What do you think?
Okay. I think I could challenge the last point about all the expertise that's required, because the elephant in the room in relation to universities is research. And I've mentioned there medicine, and I've mentioned engineering, and actually huge amounts of the developments in technology and learning come through the organisation of universities as centres for learning and development of research. I think the issue might be more how those things are linked really quite solidly to teaching and learning. And I think that's the role that universities really quite strongly play and probably should continue to. Although saying that, I'm not against third-party organisations getting involved and also offering perhaps alternative methods as well. There's space for everybody, but research is the big thing. I used to work in Stirling University, and I think something like 60% actually of the money that flows through the organisation is to do with the development of research. And one of the things they lead on is dementia studies. And much of the work that they've done there has made huge changes to how people with dementia and later life care are integrated into normal wellbeing settings, healthcare settings. That work wouldn't have happened without that research money going through that organisation, and it's linked to clinical practice. Right. So I think there's a really strong role there. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but I think that's probably the elephant in the room.
Interesting. Does that reflect your experience as well?
For me, today, we have a close collaboration with the university, and through the seminar, because we explain the evolution of the industry, and in order to stick with education, is that and the graduate for our students. And the second point, at Siemens, we give a lot of projects to the university in order to work on it, like the research and so on, and to make sure that we have the possibility to evaluate the university of the level of maturity of our technology, and to make sure that we are aligned for the knowledge waiting for at the end when the students have the diploma. Because sometimes we have the shift, and especially for the school business, a big shift today, because it continue to learn as the sales of product and not the sales value proposition. It is reason that we go to the school business in order to explain our new need. But for the technology part, we have no problem. Because sometimes we give some project, and the university has a little bit advance of our knowledge and the need of the customer, and it's a very good opportunity for us, because we are able to bring at the customer a new solution, a new concept, and it depends on the university.
I think it also depends on the scale of the organisation as well.
Right.
I mean, Siemens has a turnover of a small country. It's huge, isn't it? Whereas there's plenty of much smaller organisations that don't have the access to that level of, I suppose, resource. And I think universities play a really strong role there in still being able to take forward development and research in areas that perhaps wouldn't have such huge amounts of investment. It's quite interesting.
And now we need to observe why we have different customer wants to create his own university. Like Michelin, you know, Michelin is a tire manufacturing, has his own school. Danone has his own school. Veolia for the water treatment has its own school. Why? Because the technology used by this industrial are not learned, okay, in the university and so on. And we need to reduce the gap, okay, for that. We have in Paris, maybe you know, the school 42. The school 42, okay, is that it has been created. We have no teacher because each student has a program, like we have a team, a pedagogic team, okay, give at the students a project, and the students, okay, wants to go to the other students to solve the project, okay, to learn with the mock, use the mock, use the internet and so on, to get the knowledge missing, okay, to solve the project. And the students, okay, go step by step, okay, and we increase the difficulties of the project by the pedagogic team, but we have no teacher, okay. So if the students wants to do 20 hours per day, okay, he work 20 hours per day. If he want to work only two hours, he work 2 hours. It's not a problem, okay, because he has a pedagogic journey, okay, and in 3 years or 4 years, he need to realize all projects, okay, step by step, and to give the result, okay, at the pedagogic team. It's very incredible school because it's free, and you are able to enter without graduate, without graduate, and
how is it recognized?
amazing school. Yes, you take in the internet school 42 in Paris, school 42, very incredible school.
Okay, I would, if you don't mind, I already joined you. Yeah, and I know that we have questions online. So I just join you because I think the colleagues already start to say, what do you mean? And what is it? And where do you find that? So I would at that point, I mean, I have questions for you too, but I will wait for them and maybe for our last round, integrate them. But I would open now because on the one hand, we have colleagues here maybe who have questions, and we have colleagues online who have questions. As I see some hands raising, can they wait a bit? You're still gathering?
Writing them.
Okay, perfect.
Also just one question.
Okay, so I start here and you give me a sign because Diana is like our mediator between online and offline. That's our hybrid setting today. So, and I start because here I already say, and please again, name, institution and countries, also interesting, and loud, as I tried to do. Please, Lindsay.
My name is Lindsay Alamoud. I am the Deputy Director of Adult Continuing Education in University College Cork in Ireland. So a question, Gary, I'm going to address it to you, but it would be interesting maybe to hear the other perspectives as well. How do we get industry and students to value the higher order thinking and critical thinking skills that we develop in universities? It's part of our bigger, broader purpose of higher education. Yes, employability skills are important and we want our graduates to find a job. That is not the sole purpose of higher education.
It's interesting. It's a brilliant question because in a few weeks, I have to give my inaugural lecture at Sunderland. And the theme of it basically is, you don't come to uni just to get a job. It's education as an act of freedom. And whilst I'm not going to get on that soapbox here, I think there's a balance to be struck between coming to university in order to then have some skills that you can use to go on to get a job. We have to face it, that it actually is the prime motivator for many people to go to university. But there is also I mean, I'll stand and defend arts-based degrees all day long because of that creative, critical approach to learning. I think I'm going to go back to that standard idea of partnerships, and I've got a really lovely example. There's a colleague of mine who works in Artes University in Amsterdam, and he is basically an arts-based researcher and educator. And one of the things he's doing, he's getting artists to work with policymakers in government for them to reimagine how they are thinking about things. So this is pretty bland stuff, making, government policy, that screeds and screeds of it. But he's getting them to approach it through ways of thinking about, using metaphor for interpretation, using, a creative approach to thinking about problems differently. He's getting them painting pictures and all sorts of stuff, which people might think actually is an unusual approach, but it does change the way people are thinking about it. And I think if we can, I'm not necessarily, don't worry, Laurent, I'm going to get all your engineers painting pictures, but I think if you can integrate those things really, really cleverly, then I think there is a future for it. But yeah, that's a really clear message in that question, and I'll hand that over.
Next to that.
I might also tie it back to what we were talking about earlier about flattening hierarchies, because I think the kind of traditional academic higher order thinking, as you said, is often associated in many students' minds with also the traditional academic, the traditional university with a more academic focus and the ivory tower kind of approach to higher education. So I think if a less hierarchical approach to the to higher order thinking, to the teaching of higher order thinking, could be taken and could then be applied also more to real life contexts, including employment. I think students would come to see the value of it much more, and also if it's also tied with non-hierarchical. I guess I also mean having a more learner focused approach, where maybe something like the approach the School 42 is taking, that's very much about everyone creating their own learning journey. I wonder if all those things could basically be combined somehow. I know it's not easy, but I think there could be one. Yeah.
It's very difficult to answer this question because it's close to the university. For industry, we don't want to jeopardize as the pedagogic part. Okay, it's your job for the pedagogic part. But we have the technology. We need to make sure that the students has the technology in head, okay, and the methodology, and is able to work together.
Thank you. I have a second question, Christina.
Hello. Christina Barnes from University-Entreprise-Student. Oh, sorry.
Loud, let's speak out loud.
I know.
Getting older. I'm getting older.
Christina Barnes, University of Life Sciences, Natural Resources, Vienna.
Austria.
I'm very I love UCAN since many years, so as the time goes by, I'm getting older as well, and I know what you need comment. Anyway, my question is, when it comes to basic knowledge, which should be taught by universities without a goal, or more to say with senseless curiosity. So what I want to say, as universities, we have the value that we teach our students to become interested in things which don't have a specific goal for industries, but specific goals for senseless curiosities. Because most of the invention which we now have in our world came by accident. So we developed something, but something else have been the invention. So we really have to keep this senseless curiosity in our students. And when we have too many goals in terms of connecting to industry and employability and matching with the companies, where's this curiosity for the student himself, for the learner himself? Yeah. So how would you, because I think it's a danger if you too much connect to employability and skills for the labor market. There's no vision, there's no future. I mean, for like universities, yes, of course, but for universities which have a broader sense in future and visions, I think we should really be critical as industries and universities to keep this curiosity alive.
Thank you for this comment. Is there anything you would like to add or you would like to comment back?
I'd like to, if possible, that's okay. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's really important, and I think it's how pedagogy is enacted within the development and teaching of those, basic principles. And a lovely example I want to give is the Further Education College or Vocational Education Centre in Edinburgh, near where I live. A colleague there was despairing over teaching the sort of really basic aspects of motor vehicle engineering, how engines work, how suspension works. The students' eyes were glazing and rolling into the backs of their heads. And we had a discussion. I said, well, how are you teaching this? And he said, on the 6th floor in a classroom. I said, well, okay, there's the first mistake. Let's get this in the workshop. And then how are you going to teach it there? And basically what we managed to do was steal about £2,500 out of the basic skills budget. And we got a donor car, and then we bought a kit car, racing car, and the students built the racing car. So they had to learn how to take the old car to bits, then they had to learn how to modify all the parts, and then they had to learn how to build the racing car. That covered engine technology, it covered all the suspension, it covered the maths, it covered the science, it covered everything. And at the end of it, they had a racing car. They did all the same stuff. It was just reimagining how they might do it. And the students weren't sitting in the classroom on the 6th floor, their eyes rolling, the back of their heads falling asleep. And I think that college has now taken that forward into how it teaches renewable technologies. I thought it was quite brave in Edinburgh. There's an acre outside full of solar panels. The students work with the solar panels, they monitor the solar panels. It's this really sort of creative approach to teaching and learning, I think, is critical. It's time consuming and expensive, and that's where the barriers are. But if we can get around those barriers, I think it can be integrated across the piece.
Okay, thank you very much. If I don't see Laurent, I see you.
I already because the example today is a car. You take the car. Today you have the thermic car, you have the electrical car, and you have hybrid car. And for the students, it's exactly the same. Okay, we need to have the students is able to learn first, and to be hybrid. For example, we need the mechatronic and the mix of the mechanic and electronic. We need the people is able to embrace the IT, OT, the IT for the office, but the OT in the operating technology on the shop floor for the plant. And is this reason that the students need more activities, more competence in order to make sure that interest the industry. For example, today for Siemens, when we have a business school recruitment for the sales representative, if he has no the knowledge for the technology like mechanic, electronic, pneumatic, and so on, he has the key in order to say something, but he don't have the technology. And when we go to the customer has a problem not to pay a solution, but to build the solution and to have a solution approach and not a product approach. This reason that we need hybrid students is able to cover two types of skills in order to make sure that we are able to integrate these guys in our industry. It's complex now. Yeah.
Another thing I'd like to mention that we haven't talked about at all is assessment as well. I think universities tend to see themselves as the sort of reserve or the sort of a treasure chest of ideas and imagination and all these wonderful things which they can be. But at the end of the day, I think for many students, their experience of higher education is very much focused on assessment and succeeding in the kind of traditional assessment methods that still dominate universities and most disciplines, and that still are very much about rote learning and sort of playing the assessment game. At least that's what I felt it always was, about knowing the rules and knowing how to meet the requirements. And I think that really kills imagination like nothing else. So I think if universities want to continue promoting lateral thinking, for example, or creativity and imagination, I think, we definitely need to reconsider assessments and maybe looking towards industry or looking towards more like problem-based approaches that Gary mentioned earlier would be one way to do that. Yeah, just to add that.
Thank you. I would now jump into the online dialogue and
we have one question from Susan Dennett. She is instructor and operations director for Florida Atlantic University College of Business and Cooperation. And she says that they have about 30,000 students, both traditional and non-traditional adults. And she teaches in the College of Business, MBA students and undergraduate students. And she asks now, she says, I facilitate an MBA class, and each week we invite a leader from industry to share the expectations from the industry as well as the experience. I normally ask leaders who are on our advisory board, but I would like to approach new different leaders. What would you recommend as the approach to initially talk to these leaders?
It means to integrate more professional expertise, or to get experts from outside, from the business sector, to talk to students and to engage in a way with students and putting up ways. So ideas.
I could give a very UK-centric answer, but there are networks essentially of business leaders who are working together with leaders in universities or leaders in the third sector, for example, and having these sorts of discussions. I think it's about becoming part of, and I'm preaching converted here because we're in a network meeting, but it's about becoming part of those networks, and then you gain access to huge numbers of different types of interesting people that will quite freely want to be involved. I've done it in the past through quite literally cold calling. I ended cold calling, get on the phone. I mean, I became a nuisance for Ferrari about 10 years ago, to the point where they ended up sending some technicians and some people in because I just kept getting in touch. But eventually, I mean, that's one way of doing it. But I think the network idea is probably a more sensible option. But that might have a completely different perspective.
No, it's a network. No, it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
idea.
okay. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
any other questions from online or from here from the group? Oh, a colleague from France. So Pascal. No, Switzerland first here.
Mr. Lausanne, EPFL, in Lausanne, Switzerland. I have two questions. The first one is maybe more for more for Laurent, which is how to identify and anticipate the future learning needs, because we're always talking about changing needs and how to try to guess them or to identify them. And the second one is maybe more general, but what should a university be in 20 years' time? We are talking about university becoming obsolete or not knowing how to work with industry. So what should they be, let's say, in 20 years' time?
Okay, to bring an answer. And At Siemens, we have a special team, it's a corporate technology. It's located in Germany. And this, it's not the R&D, we have the R&D and we have the corporate technology. And the corporate technology works on the product will be launched in 10 years. Okay, today I saw some new technology. I can explain you because it's great today. And he has a little bit advanced because you need to push, okay, the R&D out of, okay, the thinking, okay, and the corporate technology is located of all countries because we have the talent in the different country, okay, especially the corporate technology is composed of 99% of doctors, okay, and it's a research and development, but for the future, not for the product will be launched, okay, in 2 years, but the product will be launched in 10 years. Is this reason that we have already worked on for example, for the digital twin, and we have now an association with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a specialist for the graphic card, and we work with NVIDIA in order to explain NVIDIA what we need, okay, for the future in order to improve the graphic card. Okay. And when we launch a product, okay, I have five years in advance, and it is reason that we, for example, today we start the demonstration of the metaverse, okay, in the industry. And today we have no product in the metaverse. But we know that in the future, the digital twin of the plant will be in the metaverse. For example, the COMEX of the company will move in the metaverse in the plant in order to see the indicator with the dashboard, with the KPI and so on, directly in the metaverse environment. Okay, we believe that without problem. And is this reason that we talk about this technology, because we know in 5 years we will have the product and it will be rolled out, okay, in the industry. And it's at this moment, okay, that the university need to get, okay, this information and to work with us in order to build, okay, the future training course, the future document and so on, in order to learn, because I know that I need 5 years in order to have one engineer. Okay? Is this reason that if we start now, I'm sure that the metaverse will be operate for the engineer in 5 years. Okay.
I think there was the general question to all, and then I would give the cut to the colleague, because there was just one more question about what about the future of the university? Would I?
What should the university be like in 20 years?
20 years. Would you like to answer now?
Yeah. I think I can give a response to that.
Okay.
In recent years in the UK, there have been parts of university provision that have been under attack. And it's mainly the arts. So, for example, last year, I think 8 universities were forced to close down their archaeology departments. Courses that are focused on drama, focused on fine art, for example, are being closed down. And I think my response really is on the basis of that. In 20 years' time, I would like universities to still be places of creativity, imagination, and innovation in the truest sense of the word, where the influence of the arts on modern human society is fully appreciated in its role in developing industry and technology, because the creative approaches that we need in order to make advancements in science and engineering and technology are going to be very, very difficult if we are not having a creatively engaged community of people in those organizations. I think being able to marry those two together and then do the things that we've been talking about with integration with industry, really interesting and clever ways of working digitally. And of course, what you've been saying about how, the hierarchies and how things are able to flow in and out. So centres for learning that have largely been allowed to continue to be that undisturbed, which I fear is not going to be the case in the UK, certainly.
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add to that. I fully agree. And I also think we should consider that in 20 years' time, students who are attending university now may be still attending or attending again, right? It might be the same people who are back at university. So it might be, yeah, that the institution will have to change because of that, how it will change or how it will accommodate the same students that accommodated 20 years earlier, but with 20 extra years of life experience and skills. I think that's something that universities have to think about. And I think it shouldn't be seen as like, oh, we have to reskill, we have to upskill, and do it out of some kind of economic necessity or labor market pressures, but also see the value in that for, personal development and general societal development. So yeah, just one thing. Thank you.
Colleague here with the question, please.
Yeah, I just
Please name and
yeah, my name is Vladana Vidic. I am representative from Boku, so not
also from Boku.
Yeah, yes, lifelong learning. Just give maybe also the question regarding the industry and technology in coming. You already know what will be in 10 years, and then you need to collaborate with the higher education. That means that professors also need trainings that they could train students regarding this new technology. And how do you see the collaboration? How you can make this? Do you already can you do this now, or
yes.
What is the vision?
Yes, we have a special program in order to transfer our knowledge to the professor, and we have this university, it's a summer university, okay, in France. It's 2 weeks, okay, organized by Siemens and the French government in order to give the possibility of the professor, okay, what's the level you have, and to learn, okay, our technology. And as the second point, okay, we have a close collaboration with, for example, École des Mines, with the CNAM and so on. When we go, okay, to realize a module, okay, today I organize a module for the IoT and cloud in the university. I explain, okay, the technology. I explain how to use, okay, this technology, and the professor, okay, takes the place of the students, okay, and we realize the training course in live in order to explain this technology. But we have two types, okay. Now, the professor don't any problem, okay, to take the place of the students during 2 or 3 years, because the technology, okay, rise rapidly. Okay, you need, okay, the information coming from like Siemens, like Schneider, like Accenture, like Atos, and so on. It's a big Orange, okay, or Bouygues, because the 5G, for example, okay, we need to understand the 5G possibility, and it is reason that today we have a lot of professors has no problem to take the place at the season and close to the students during, and it's not a problem for them, okay, and we transfer our knowledge through the summer university and the special webinar and training course that we organize directly to the school.
Can I add something briefly to that? I think there's an interesting thought process about how we look at careers and profiles and jobs in higher education as well. And again, there will be examples of this, but it's not a huge leap of imagination to have dual professionalism, where somebody spends some of their time working in Siemens and some of the time working in the university and has a dual role. And I can think of examples where I know that happens. So I think having that as a more broadly accepted model of career trajectory within the higher education sector is something that might well end up becoming more widespread, possibly.
Please don't hesitate to ask as a company in your country, okay, to participate, because for me it's very important, because the students could be our future collaborator, our future customer, or our future competitors. Okay, but with the transfer of knowledge, okay, if he try to fight against Siemens, he will be have a lot of difficulties. Okay, and okay. It's very important. Okay, we bet on the students. Okay, today in order to transfer our knowledge.
I see another comment, but maybe I could go before, because I listened so long now. I need to ask something, because we are at the moment, you are always talking about two routes, you know, the universities having the knowledge, the high order skills, whatever, and then we have the companies who do the technologies. Well, thinking of different subjects, of even interdisciplinary studies or research or transdisciplinary research, we're not talking about two containers, because I would question that the whole expertise and the whole research lies in university when it comes to different subjects. But I still would say there is a benefit of universities. So I'm wondering, and this is a question to the three of you, how do you experience when we talk about future topics, you know, hearing it takes 5 years, you know, when we have something. I mean, we can't just react. We need so long time to develop things. I was wondering, what are your views on working together? You know, or what are your experiences of collaboration between the industry and the academic sector? And from all your points, even from the students' point, what did you experience in your studies, maybe? So I would like to have a bit of that, and not only talking about the two containers. Who wants to start?
I don't mind going first, because you've raised a really interesting point that I think another reason that universities are so important is they are so utterly diverse in what they do. There'll be representatives of almost everything in this room, but my own work is in education, and specifically in developing education within vocational education settings. That's done entirely collaboratively. I've got 10 doctoral students. They're all either teachers or leaders within college settings, and I'm helping them develop their research, which is making changes in that sector. Equally, I'm part of a leadership team of a college. So the university allows me to go and participate in governance of a special educational needs college. And I'm there to help them, but I'm also there because I have to be in the college sector in order to be able to have any kind of say in it. And that, I think, is probably happening much more across many sectors than maybe we've constructed in the conversation about industry and university. I think it's far more integrated than that already, but it's a really important point, because what we don't want to end up in a situation is where it's not. So yeah, that's, I think, my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Laurent.
For me, for industry, it's very mandatory to work with the university, because you produce our future collaborator. Okay, if you want to stick our need today, we need to collaborate with the university in order to give the orientation of the technology, of the different type of how to manage the project and so on. Like the co-creation is very new today. The co-creation, the value proposition is already explained. And in France, we have created the ambassador des écoles, the school ambassador, and we have two types of ambassadors. I'm the ambassador des écoles for Polytechnique at Saclay, and my job is to make sure that the school use the last technologies, the last information in order to build the training course and to build the technology pathway education with our technology. And we have another type of ambassador, is ambassador specialist for the apprentice. Okay, and because we select the school has the type of students, okay, stick with our discipline, okay, in order to make sure that we have the possibility to capitalize, okay, with the school to get the students, but make sure that the students are the basis of the knowledge, okay, when he come in our company. Okay? One ambassador for the expertise and one ambassador to make sure that the university has always up to date with our technology.
Thank you very much. Yeah, again, not much to add. As I mentioned earlier, I think most students do experience that any practical aspects that are integrated into their degree and that relate to that bring in the industry in some way are normally appreciated and considered one of the most enriching parts of their higher education experience. Having said that, I think, yeah, you're right. First of all, we shouldn't consider them as two sort of separate containers and think of how they talk to each other more. But also, I think we need to consider other sectors as well, not just the industry, but also the public sector or the arts, as you mentioned before, and think about how universities can not only reach out and integrate big industry partners like Siemens, who have a lot to contribute, but also local partners, community partners, local authorities, and think about how they can also contribute to the student experience in an enriching way. Thank you very much. Isabel.
My name is Isabel Grundhofer. I'm a researcher and deputy head of the Center for Innovation and Applied Science in Life Learning at the University for Continuing Education, Krems, Austria. So that's it. I found it very interesting what you said about the humanities actually disappearing. And that there obviously is some kind of lack of funding there. And this is also something that I observed in the last years, because there are more projects just funding STEM. I mean, there are, of course, projects now in the direction of STEAM, so there's arts in it, but more like edit. You know? And I feel like the whole digital transformation thing is, of course, something good for us. Transformation is something good, but which disciplines are driving the transformation? And I truly believe that humanities are very important aspects of shaping our world, also in ethical ways. And of course, for example, for AI, you need philosophy. Philosophy is very important in AI, but do we find philosophy for AI in typical philosophy curriculum? I don't know. So I have a bit of the feeling that the humanities are a bit, lagging behind probably, because they maybe have a different tradition in the discipline on how they, interact with the world probably. I don't know. This is just now my, idea of what could be the problem, why they, don't play that big of a role in this change that we have. So maybe you have ideas, or other colleagues have ideas why this is the case and how we could get them into the digital transformation boat. Because in the end, I believe that the digital thing, it's just a tool, right? It's like in e-learning, we are always talking about e-learning, but in the end, it's learning with a different kind of medium. It's still learning. You see what I mean? So I think it was like a term to help us understand what this new thing is, but it is from, the longer we have, the less important this e-learning thing is, because it's somehow unnatural. We are learning and this is our new tool for it. Yeah.
YouTube video is e-learning. YouTube video, it's a,
Yeah.
When you have a problem, during the COVID, we have because I'm responsible for Citroën with the Siemens training activities, and we have created the remote training because we are locked down, okay, and we have a lot of customers wants to learn our technology, and the training center was locked down. The French government and all government has decided to close, and we have created a remote access in order to realize exactly the same training course in presential, okay, by in remote. And now we are in the normal situation, and we have only 20% of our training course we organize in remote. So the customer wants to come in face to face now. I stop, okay. I gave, okay. I doesn't want, okay, to continue with Teams, with Zoom and the learning distortion. He wants to close again a contact, okay, with the teacher, with the other students in the room, and for me it's very hard, okay, for our collaborator to stay at home and to realize the job, okay, in distortion. And we have the limitation for that. Yeah. We need again to touch, okay, to exchange, okay, in face to face, because we have reached the limit, okay, of that the human can support. It's the point of view of the industry part.
I think there's a you raised the idea and talked about philosophy there, and I think there is something really quite deep in how society is changing and how it sees the world. And I think there's almost a shift in generational ontology, if you like. And a funny anecdote, a few years ago, I was in a lecture theatre and I just worked out that I could use an iPad and write on it and it would come up on the screen. And I thought I was the absolute bee's knees. And I was, yes, sorry, that's a euphemism for good. And I had a classroom, a lecture theatre full of undergraduates who were all 18, 19. And I'm going, watch this. And they're all like this. Like granddaddy. And I realized then that actually I don't go with the whole digital native thing. I think it's a flawed analogy, but I remember not having the internet and black and white tellies and all that kind of stuff and no phones, whatever. And they don't. That life has never not been digital. My daughter is 7 and she sees the world through a digital lens. As much as I try and keep it away from her, she cannot understand why she can't pause terrestrial telly. Why can't I pause it then? But you know, I can't be bothered explaining, you just can't, right? They have a very different, and I think the way that we see the world, we are a generation, I'm saying we, I'm looking around the room, I think we're all born in the last century. We see the world differently to the generation that's coming through, I think, in terms of digitization and learning and how they understand and perceive the world. And that has to play a part, I think, in how education is shaped and developed in the future.
Yeah, one word just about what you were saying, Isabel, about how the humanities tend to lag behind, and I feel like as a humanities graduate a bit. But I also think that you're right, and that it's partly because of the way that knowledge is produced, right, in the humanity, or like in higher education in general. It's a long, slow process that involves a lot of reflection and peer reviewing and all these processes, so that by the time a piece of knowledge actually makes it into the world, it's quite outdated. And I think that's part of the frustration that students as well feel when they go to university, because they realize that what they're being taught isn't necessarily, do you have something you look like you want to say? Yeah. But so I wonder whether one way to sort of solve that is to have like a more well, you talked about ontology, maybe we have to also think about epistemology and how knowledge is produced, and how there are different types of knowledges maybe that are equally valuable. But I don't know.
I would like, I mean, I think was that a question? Yeah, Timo. So I mean, I just want to say one word, because we are approaching the end, I see that I have, from my point of view, a very active left side here. I would not say one, but maybe if there's somebody from this side.
This is the power of silence.
Yeah, and Balas, you had your words. So if there are any of the colleagues who would pose a question, there is the last chance, and for that Timo would forgive me. Otherwise, I of course take up Timo's questions or remarks. So is there anything you would like to ask now, because there would be the moment? Well, Timo, then it's your chance, I would say.
So, Timo Haltunen, University of Finland. Maybe just an observation what Isabel was saying, that now we have been discussing quite a lot of this technology intensive issues here as science and technology. But for example, in Finland, there was an assessment that what kind of courses are organized in open university, and what is actually lacking is science and technology courses in open university, and people are not attending courses from that area, maybe because there are no such courses. So a question arises that why is this? Are we unable to produce courses that are relevant for people working in the labor market, or will they survive without university courses? They are already in learning at the workplace. So I think it's also an interesting question that why are these open university courses dominated by humanistics, business studies and social science studies, and we don't have practically anything for mathematics, physics, chemistry, such items. Don't we know what people need, and we should start educating them? Or why is this?
I would maybe, I would at that point do just a short, maybe a thought that we could take with us, and then give you the floor for a last very small round for finalizing, because we were talking also about the digital part, but we're talking also about professional learning, flexible learning, and what that means in a context, and what's the role of university lifelong learning, higher education. And I mean, we have this discussion when we talk about the disruptive future that we experience, you know, because climate change, we can say, well, we have a solution in 20 years. The question is if we need it then, you know, if it's not too late then for some topics that are really ahead of us or already in our faces, if you like. So, and there's the whole discussion about future skills, and just with the regard of where are the humanities, or where's the idea of critical thinking about the ways we need. When you look at, and there were some studies there, for example, in Germany with businesses, is what businesses wanted or companies wanted were graduates who think critically, who say, why do you do it like that? And not being only adaptive in the skills they have, but asking the critical questions. And I think this brings us also to a sort of role that we have within our programs to say, where do we have that, you know? We will not be the best in the end, maybe who do the technology courses, but depending on the subject, I have to say, but maybe those who can say, how can you critically interact with different things? And I think these are the things that could be a discussion in itself, maybe. So the question is, what is the added value that we really could propose in that with regards to industries? So I just wanted to add that, because it seems a bit like we lost the track of why, you know, why if companies are better, if there's a huge teams of why should we do that at universities, or why should we integrate that even in smaller courses? Maybe we talk about that when we talk about micro-credentials even, you know, what could be, how do we integrate that? So, well, with that, I think we had a huge, like a broad discussion, and thank you very much for the dialogue about co-creations, about different aspects of, I had the point of added value or value proposed that we have for students from both sides and for the industry. My last question would be, what? No, it's more like something, a word. I mean, you discussed before, you discussed here, you had some ideas of the colleagues, some feedback. what is the thing that you take out from from today's discussion as something new with regard to the topic that we discussed? So what is something that you say it's new or special or something you would emphasize, maybe? Something huge for the end. You want to start, Laurent?
The takeaway.
The takeaway, yeah. I take, I need more. I'm from academic.
Because we are not academic.
Takeaway is the key word.
It's more difficult, for us, for me, to have a takeaway with your topics that you have in your daily job, and because the topic is totally different for me, because we need people already trained with a skill, with expertise and so on. And but as you know, today Siemens has a very close collaboration in Germany with our university, and in Switzerland as well, because we have a smart industry, and in France as well, because we have some talent. And for me, we don't grow without a close collaboration with the university. We need you, and you need yes, because with your pedagogic with the pedagogic training and the methods that you have to transfer the knowledge, it's not our job, and our job is to push the technology to the industry, to produce, to be better, and but we need the university, for train our future collaborator.
Thank you, Laurent. Gary.
I think the takeaway for me, you've covered collaboration there, and I think that is important. But I think for me, the realization today has come through the importance of non-siloed provision within universities themselves. Integrating humanities, social sciences, natural sciences together in research and teaching environments in order to reimagine how those projects might look and how they might work. So I think there's a job of work to do there for the future. I think in making sure the humanities are brought back to the centre of what we do through integration with sort of collaboration.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, my main takeaway is quite similar to that. To pick up on something that Laurent, you mentioned early on in your introductory speech, was about the systemic approach and how that's become more common in Siemens, but in general, and I think that's really a key word that has sort of that was also reflected in what you said about not siloing or not compartmentalizing disciplines or different ways of learning, but taking a more integrated approach. And another thing I think that has come through for me is that universities need to be not just reactive in terms of not just responding to the industries or feeling that they need to sort of catch up or keep up with the industry, but actually taking a more proactive approach and thinking about what the added value is that they can offer, and how they can be innovative in a way. So not just responding to the industry, not just responding to the kind of institutional pathways that they've been in for centuries, but actually becoming more proactive.
Thank you very much.